Two men, a debt collector and a warrant officer from an energy company, arrived at a terraced house on Chatsworth Street in Rochdale. They were there to check on an unpaid utility bill. Nothing unusual. But when the front door opened, the first thing they noticed wasn't a tenant. It was the smell, a strong, unmistakable odour of cannabis. Then, on the floor by the door, a single bullet. What happened next would uncover one of Rochdale's most alarming discoveries in years, a fully operational cannabis farm and a hidden arsenal of loaded illegal firearms. When police entered the property that December day, the rooms were warm and humid, filled with the hum of electrical fans. Inside, officers found 85 cannabis plants in full cultivation, a yield estimated at around 10 kilograms, with a potential street value in the tens of thousands. But that was only part of what they found. In a back room, police discovered something far more dangerous, a cache of guns. Some were propped up against the wall, others hidden under tarpaulins and boxes of growing equipment. Among them, officers seized an 8mm pistol, a sawn-off shotgun, a .22 caliber camouflaged rifle, a .22 pump-action rifle, and an air pistol. Each weapon was loaded, fully operational, and ready to fire. The man responsible was Christopher Bryson, a 28-year-old tenant who had rented the property since 2014. What investigators found inside his home would later be described as a deadly collection, a combination of drug cultivation and weapon hoarding that left even experienced officers stunned. When officers traced Bryson and brought him into custody, he initially said little. He later admitted that he had been running the cannabis farm and keeping the weapons for protection. But as prosecutors explained, these were not deterrents or props. They were real, working firearms, each one capable of taking a life. At Minshull Street Crown Court, Bryson pleaded guilty to production of cannabis and possession of several prohibited firearms. The judge sentenced him to 7 years and 8 months in prison, describing the discovery as one of the most serious of its kind in the area. Detective Constable Russell Clark from Greater Manchester Police's Rochdale Borough led the investigation. Speaking after the sentencing, he said, "I have never before come across such a substantial and lethal arsenal of weaponry and ammunition in the possession of a single offender. Bryson had amassed a deadly collection, and Rochdale is a safer place now that these weapons have been seized." The story of how those guns came to light still stands as an extraordinary chain of events, a random inspection that could have turned into a tragedy. The two visitors, the energy company's warrant officer and the debt collector, had been following standard procedure that morning. They knocked, gained access to the property, and were immediately hit by the overpowering smell of cannabis. As they stepped into the hallway, their eyes fell on a single piece of ammunition on the floor, a live round lying in plain sight. Realizing the potential danger, they left the property immediately and called the police. Within minutes, armed officers arrived at the scene. The building was searched, secured, and photographed. Inside, what had looked from the outside like an ordinary rented house was revealed to be something far more sinister. A miniature drug factory combined with a private armory. In the living room and kitchen, officers found hydroponic growing setups, powerful lighting rigs, and timers wired into the mains. In the back room, rows of cannabis plants sat in nutrient trays. The weapons were hidden nearby, within easy reach. Some were stored with boxes of ammunition. One shotgun had been cut down, likely to make it easier to conceal. All were live. Forensic teams documented every weapon. The sawn-off shotgun was loaded. The pistol was cocked, with a round chambered. The pump-action rifle was ready to fire. Even the air pistol had been modified to shoot with dangerous force. The scene suggested not a casual collection, but a serious and deliberate stockpile. Investigators said Bryson had prepared for confrontation. In police interviews, he offered no clear reason for possessing so many firearms. He claimed he kept them for safety, a statement the court later rejected outright. The judge ruled that his behavior showed an intent to use, sell, or at the very least threaten others with them. When the cannabis farm was dismantled, police estimated its total yield could have reached 22 pounds, or 10 kilograms, of processed cannabis, with a street value of up to £100,000. For investigators, it confirmed that this was a commercial operation, one designed for profit, not personal use. During sentencing, the court heard that Bryson had lived at the Chatsworth Street address for several years and was the registered tenant. His links to the weapons remain under investigation, but the immediate evidence left little doubt. He had combined two serious crimes in one small property: drug production and illegal firearms possession. Detective Constable Clark later described the discovery as both dangerous and deeply concerning. He said, "The immeasurable impact that guns can have on a community is reflected in the sentence imposed today, sending a clear message to criminals that guns on our streets will not be tolerated." He continued, "Bryson had amassed a deadly collection. Rochdale is safer now. These weapons are off the streets. We urge anyone with information about firearms to contact police or Crime Stoppers if they wish to remain anonymous." What shocked investigators most was the readiness of the weapons, each one not only functional but loaded. The pistol's magazine contained live rounds. The shotgun was primed with shells. The rifles were sighted, loaded, and set up as if for use. Officers described the discovery as a lethal environment, one mistake away from disaster. Had the warrant officer and debt collector not noticed that single bullet on the floor, the situation could have escalated differently. Police later said the men's quick reaction may have prevented a potential armed standoff. Their decision to leave immediately and call for backup was described as life-saving judgment. The discovery also highlighted the growing concern over illegal firearm possession linked to drug operations across the north of England. While cannabis farms are frequently uncovered, the presence of loaded guns alongside them is far rarer and far more dangerous. In this case, the firearms were fully capable of lethal discharge. For local residents, the case was a stark reminder that serious crime can exist in the most ordinary of places. Chatsworth Street, a row of modest terraced houses, sits in a quiet residential area. Behind one of its doors, a network of wiring, heat lamps, and weapons had been operating in secret for months. Bryson's arrest came swiftly after the raid. In interviews, he showed little emotion. He admitted to growing cannabis for profit and conceded that the guns were in his possession, but denied any intention to use them. His lawyer said he was deeply remorseful, but the judge dismissed that claim, stating that his choices had created an unacceptable risk to the public. When sentence was passed, the court noted that the combination of firearms and drugs represented a volatile and violent potential threat. Bryson's 7-year, 8-month term reflected the seriousness of the offences and the public danger involved. As the police later stated, this case shows how routine checks can uncover major criminal activity. A single smell, a single bullet, and behind it, an entire operation. For Detective Constable Clark and his team, the case stood out not only for its scale, but for its recklessness. The weapons were found loaded. Ammunition was scattered through the rooms. Cannabis plants were growing under illegal wiring, a combination that could have led to explosion or fire. The risk was everywhere, Clark said, to officers, to neighbours, and to anyone who walked through that door. As officers removed the last of the plants and weapons, neighbours stood outside in silence. The street was cordoned off as armed response vehicles came and went. For most residents, it was the first time they had seen such an operation unfold so close to home. Today, Bryson is serving his sentence in prison. The weapons have been destroyed, the plant seized and the property cleared. But for investigators, the case remains a reminder of how hidden threats can exist behind the most ordinary facades, and how quickly routine can turn to danger. As Detective Clark put it best, the presence of one loaded gun is one too many. The presence of 5 alongside drugs and ammunition is something no community should ever face again.